What is up, everyone, and welcome to the Sports Metrics Guy YouTube channel. I am Jonathan Gurley, and it's deadline season. We're officially 4 days out from the Major League Baseball trade deadline. We've already seen some moves happen. Some players get taken off the board, actually. So there's a lot to break down and a lot to talk about. So let's jump right on in with Diamondbacks third baseman Eugenio Suarez. The Diamondback Slugger is the most coveted bat at this year's trade deadline, with a slash line of 247, 319, and 579, and rocking an 898 OPS with 36 home runs and 87 RBIs to this point. When you are acquiring Suarez, you are getting somebody who will bring a high power bat to your lineup. That's really all that he is going to provide. He is not very good fielding, and there's not very much speed, but you are adding a very prolific high power bat. Now we can kind of see why the Yankees switched off from Suarez and pursued McMahon. The Diamondbacks probably asked for Spencer Jones or George Lombard Jr., and the Yankees are not willing to part with any of them, as we've seen from John Heyman and Jeff Passan saying that they do not want to move on from those two prospects. So now that begs the question of what really was the price if the Diamondbacks pivoted to McMahon 6 days out from the deadline, and we are now 4 days out from the deadline, and we really don't know what Suarez's market is. We know the Diamondbacks want to trade him. We know that teams like the Brewers, the Reds, the Mariners, and the Astros have talked about Suarez. Maybe a team like the Cubs could swoop in who need to add power to that lineup if they decide to go all in Kyle Tucker's 1 year in Chicago. It's going to be very interesting to see how Suarez's market breaks down, and I think we will for sure see him moved, and it wouldn't shock me if the Brewers or the Astros jump all in on this piece. Next player we'll be talking about is Orioles first baseman and the DH for the American League in the All-Star game this year, Ryan O'Hearn. To this point, O'Hearn's having a surprising year with a slash line of 282, 375, and 450, rocking an 824 OPS with 12 home runs and 39 RBI to this point, with an OPS plus of 134. Now, the one team we know that has been directly linked to O'Hearn and that we know does like him is the Boston Red Sox. Now, that would be an in-division trade. Those are very uncommon already, but even at the deadline, they're even more uncommon. The Red Sox have been searching for a first base upgrade the entire year. With the emergence of Romy Gonzalez and Abraham Torres, a good platoon, kind of slowly losing its sparkle. We also know that the Astros would make sense here. The Rangers, who are now surging, need as much help as in the lineup as they can. And the Giants, obviously, their long-term plan is not having Rafael Devers at first base, as we've seen from these last three games. So O'Hearn kind of has a robust market of AL and one NL team pursuing him, both in playoff pushes, looking to add another bat to their lineup. And it'll be interesting to see what the Orioles do with O'Hearn. He's a free agent at the end of the year, and the Orioles are out of it. They need to sell as much as they can, but the Orioles are in a spot where it's like you're not going to sell a Gunnar Henderson, you're not going to sell an Adley Rutschman, you're not going to sell a Jackson Holiday. It's a super young team, so O'Hearn is the perfect sell candidate for him. It's just a matter of who makes that move. Now that we already see what the first baseman market looks like, with Josh Naylor getting moved to the Seattle Mariners from the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Mariners gave up two top 30 prospects in their system. So it'll be interesting to see what O'Hearn goes for on Thursday's deadline. Next up is the 2022 Cy Young Award winner and Marlins starting pitcher Sandy Alcantara. Alcantara's had a very rough year recovering from Tommy John surgery. In his first year back, he is 5-9 with a 6.6 ERA. But if you look at some of the underlying metrics, like Alcantara's FIP, it's a 4.48 FIP on the year and an expected ERA of 5. Now, those are nothing to freak out about or get excited about. It's more of just the team sees something under the hood that they think they can fix. And we've seen Alcantara at his best. When he's at his best, he is a Cy Young award-winning pitcher. He's just not there. And Tommy John is a very brutal surgery for these pitchers to come back from. So teams like the Dodgers and the Astros, who are good at taking pitchers and getting the most out of them at any point in their career, are very interested in him. And Alcantara does come, I believe, with another year of control after this year. Another team like the Red Sox could potentially be in. And you'll see a lot of teams with pitching help that need pitching help potentially in on him, maybe even the Cubs. It's all a matter of who thinks they can get the most out of Alcantara at this point. Now, if you would have traded for Alcantara, say in April or in the offseason, I think the price would have been a lot more as we get close to the deadline. I do not think his price is as much as it was 4 or 5 months ago. And you can't say the same for everybody, because if you look at Garrett Crochet at the deadline last year, the White Sox wanted so much for him, and the Red Sox were able to get him back in later in December, but not for the package everybody thought they would have got if they would have traded him at the deadline. So with Alcantara's struggles this year, I do think his price will be a bit cheaper, which is why some of these teams are interested in it because they wouldn't have to trade as many top 30 guys as they would have thought of a couple months ago. So I think Alcantara will have a very robust market, and I think there's a very real chance we are seeing him moved at this year's deadline. The next pitcher we were going to talk about was Royals pitcher Seth Lugo, who is expected to be one of the top names potentially moved at this year's trade deadline, with the Royals not living up to the expectations that were set last year and early in the months of April and beginning of May. But last night, Jeff Passan reported that Lugo has agreed to a 2-year extension with the Kansas City Royals to stay with, I believe, an option after the for the 2028 season. So Lugo is now off the market. Now we're going to talk about a run of relievers that could be moved, and a team like the Phillies jumps out to me for these relievers. But the first reliever we're going to talk about won't be getting moved anymore. It was going to be a Guardians closer, Emmanuel Clase, but as Jeff Passan reported this morning, Cleveland Guardians closer Emmanuel Clase has been placed on the non-disciplinary paid leave as part of MLB's sports betting investigation. He will join teammate Luis Ortiz on this list through August 31st. This has been a very interesting year for the Guardians, and the fact that Clase, their all-star closer, now joins one of his teammates on this list. He's the second Guardian to get placed on it this year. And that's also bad for the Guardians because it takes one of the biggest trade commodities off of the trade block. Clase was arguably the best closer in baseball last year. This year, he's still been good, but the numbers are up. It was like an 0.64 ERA last year, and now it is about a 2.74 ERA with a 2.25 FIP. Still really good, and he's still a really good pitcher, but this is just a sucky situation all around for all parties involved. So with this run on relievers, these are ones that could actually be moved, and they are both relievers from the Twins, starting with closing pitcher Johan Duran, who has 16 saves with a 1.86 ERA on the year, a 2.38 FIP, and a 2.4 BWAR. Duran is one of the most electric pitchers in baseball, very high fastball velocity, and just some nasty stuff coming out of the bullpen that could be very valuable to a Phillies team that just seems to always need bullpen help at the end of the year, especially with losing closer Jose Alvarado to a PED suspension at the beginning of the year. Now, if the Twins don't move Duran, you could see the Phillies go after Griffin Jax. Jax is another high leverage reliever who's had a very interesting year, has zero saves, but has a 1-5 record, an ERA of 4, a 2.07 FIP, and a 3.04 expected ERA. So it just seems that he's gotten unlucky a lot of times. You look at the FIP and you see that there are some great under the hood things. He's worth a half a win according to Baseball Reference. So the Phillies could likely see something that they could fix in Griffin Jax, and they are going to have a very big market. It just seems like Dave Dombrowski is going to find one of these guys and go out and get his guy. And Dave is known for getting his guy at the deadline. He's been very aggressive. You see this at times with the Phillies, the Red Sox, and the Tigers, of him going out and making a move that he wants and thinks will make his team better. And the Phillies are always going to be in need of relief pitching help. And if they want to catch up to the Mets without Alvarado, Jax or Duran could really help stabilize that bullpen. Continuing this run on pitchers and staying in the AL Central, we have two first-time All-Stars who are under team control for at least a couple more years, in Joe Ryan of the Minnesota Twins and Kris Bubic of the Kansas City Royals. Now, both of these pitchers are going to come with high costs. I think Bubic has either a year or two, maybe even 3 left of control, and Joe Ryan, I think, has 2.5 more years of control. Both pitchers are really good pitchers, but they're going to come with high costs, and I think only a couple teams would be willing to make that trade. I think the Astros, the Dodgers, and the Yankees would stay away from these trades, and I think teams that have been pursuing controllable young starting pitchers like the Boston Red Sox, the Toronto Blue Jays, and maybe even the Detroit Tigers if they want to add another stud arm to their rotation, which is also highly unlikely though because these are in-division trades for controllable arms, which you just never ever see. And you probably won't because you don't want to give your division rival another firepower to their rotation. Now, there are also some things. The Twins are not really kind of set on trading Ryan. It could be another Garrett Crochet thing where they explored it at the deadline, and then all of a sudden they decided, you know what, we'll wait. And they got a great return, the White Sox, later that year in December for Garrett Crochet. And with Kris Bubic, on the other hand, he was just placed on the 15-day injured list yesterday with a shoulder sprain or some sort of shoulder injury. And he is already on a hard innings limit this year. He's thrown, I believe, 116 innings this year. And that is going to be a big thing down the stretch that we also kind of saw with Garrett Crochet last year, where he said if he was traded, he was not going to go anywhere without an extension in place. So these are both very young pitchers that I would say a 10 to 15% chance that they are moved, but I think it's more likely than other arms we will potentially see on this list that those two will get moved. Next up is Pirates pitcher Mitch Keller, who is 4-10 on the year and in 125 innings pitched has a 3.53 ERA and a 3.42 FIP. Keller is a very interesting and intriguing arm at this year's deadline. He's coming with 3.5 years of control as he's already signed to a contract extension. And I think it's something that the Pirates should really consider moving Mitch Keller. They need to start building around Paul Skeens before time runs out, before they either trade him or he leaves in free agency when his contract is up. Bob Nutting, their owner, does not like signing big time free agents, and Skeens will be priced out. He's already priced out of really what the Pirates should be paying him. They have the number one prospect in baseball now in Connor Griffin. They have Thomas Harrington, Bubba Chandler, good young pitchers that are vying for rotation spots. They've already got Jared Jones, who will be back next year. They got Paul Skeens. I think moving Mitch Keller for some offensive help, whether that be a potential Jarren Duran swap with the Red Sox, but who knows if the Red Sox would even want somebody like Keller. They like to go for young, controllable arbitration pitchers. I think the Yankees would make great sense for Mitch Keller. They have a all right farm system where I think they could get enough prospects moved for Mitch Keller to bring in somebody who can be that third or fourth pitcher, which I think is a role that Keller would fit fine in, pitching behind Max Fried and Carlos Rodon to help shore up the Yankees rotation and maybe even stop this sort of tailspin they've been on for the last month and a half. Next up is a pair of Diamondback pitchers that are both rentals that I think could be on the move. That is Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. Gallen is having a rough year from what we've usually seen, but if you kind of look at the metrics, we have been seeing signs of regression really since 2022. But Gallen this year, 7-12 with a 5.60 ERA and a 4.74 FIP. He is now worth negative 0.1 wins above replacement, according to Baseball Reference, in 127 innings this year. If you're trading for Gallen, who will be a free agent at the end of the year, it's somebody like the Dodgers, the Cubs, maybe even the Astros, who think that they can fix what we see in Gallen and get back to the old Gallen that we have seen. I do think there's a chance that he will be traded. The Diamondbacks plan on selling a lot after they traded Naylor. It was talked about they were going to maybe move 5-6 players. We've now seen Grichuk. That would leave, they're looking at moving 5. That's now Suarez, Kelly, and Gallen. So that would fit that what Mike Hazen said, that they could be looking to move that many players. I think Kelly is the much better trade chip. Kelly does have one of the lowest four-seam fastball velocities in baseball, but he's 9-6 with a 3.22 ERA on the season, a 3.43 FIP, I believe, and 128 innings, and it's worth 3.2 wins above replacement, according to Baseball Reference. Kelly is a pitcher that is also a big game pitcher. We've seen him in the playoffs pitch lights out for the Diamondbacks in the past, and I think we'll have an expansive market of playoff teams looking to add to their rotation. Somebody like the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Astros, the Cubs, the Yankees, the Phillies. Notice a consistent theme of these teams buying after starting pitching help and looking at these teams that are selling off multiple starters to be like, hey, we want that guy, bring him in and see what he can do. So I do think there's a pretty good chance that Kelly and Gallen are both sold at this year's deadline. We're at the point now we're going to start seeing some regression in the quality of bats made available at this year's trade deadline. Next with Marcell Ozuna of the Braves. Ozuna this year has a slash line of 332, 358, and 384 with 13 home runs and 42 RBI. Ozuna is not the hitter he has been in years past. He's rocking a 109 OPS plus, that's 9 points above league average, and he is worth exactly 1 win according to Baseball Reference. If you look at the Savant page, the Savant pages are two different things. If you look at the 2024 to the 2025 one, all he does is hit. He is just a player that if you're hoping that he can come back to that 40 home run potential. But even when he was hitting 40 home runs last year for the Braves, he was still hitting around 300. The Padres are the only team that seem very interested in moving to get him. And when AJ Preller finds somebody he wants, AJ Preller is going to go out and overpay. It's AJ Preller's DNA. So I would not shock me one bit if we see Marcell Ozuna playing for the San Diego Padres. Next up is another bat that's having a down year, and that is Orioles outfielder Cedric Mullins. Mullins on the years has a slash line of 217, 296, 405. With with a 701 OPS and a 97 OPS plus. That's 3 points below league average. 14 home runs, 45 RBI on the year. I think really only two teams would make sense in the Mullins sweepstakes. I think that's the Houston Astros and the Philadelphia Phillies. Both teams are looking for outfield help, especially the Astros, who have Taylor Trammell playing in the outfield right now. The Astros don't necessarily need the bat, they just need the consistency of somebody in left field every day outside of Jose Altuve. Maybe instead of getting an outfielder like Mullins, they'll look at maybe another infielder. We've seen him attached to Brandon Donovan as a potential trade talk with the St. Louis Cardinals. But I think Mullins, if he were to get moved, is as being one of the Orioles' only real trade chips outside of guys like potentially Felix Bautista and Ryan O'Hearn. I think Mullins would make sense to get moved. It's just if you look at the Savant pages, in years past. They're not the best, and Mullins is far from the 6-win player we saw in 2021. Lastly, for players that I think will be moved at this year's trade deadline, we have Pirates closing pitcher David Bednar. Bednar is 2-5 on the year with 16 saves. He is rocking a 2.19 ERA, a 1.93 FIP, and he is worth 1.3 wins above replacement according to Baseball Reference. I think a team like the Dodgers, whose bullpen has been decimated by injuries, makes sense. The Phillies are always going to be looking for bullpen help. The Yankees, if they do trade for Mitch Keller, this could be a potential good package. Keller and Bednar for the Yankees to help stabilize that bullpen. You know, their back end arm. And I just think Bednar, it's time to trade him. You've looked at the Pirates. He was good for those, like from 2022 to 2023, he was good. And then last year he had a rough year. And then the beginning of April, it looked like Bednar was done. He was actually optioned to AAA at one point this year with a 5 ERA, but has managed to get his stuff back and his great pitching abilities back. That I think it's just time for the Pirates to bank on that and add some more hitting depth, as much hitting depth as they need, because this team just does not have a good enough offense to compete, and they need to compete in the Paul Skeens era, and they can afford to move on from David Bednar to help better that team around in the long term with prospects. There are some players at the deadline that I do not expect to get moved, but teams will have interest in, starting with Guardians outfielder Stephen Kwan. Kwan has a slash line of 285, 360, and 411, rocking a 761 OPS on the year with 9 home runs and 37 RBI, with a 112 OPS plus and 3.3 wins above replacement according to Baseball Reference. It's a typical Stephen Kwan year. He's going to play you great defense, and he's going to hit for a ton of average. Had a power surge recently. I believe he has 3 home runs in the last week. Kwan is a great young outfielder that I just don't see the Guardians moving. I saw the Guardians potentially moving from Emmanuel Clase, maybe Shane Bieber. Maybe Bieber will get moved. I don't know. But I just do not see them selling on Kwan already. I think Kwan is a good enough player they just got to keep, and hopefully maybe they can bounce back next year. Now moving on to a team that has 2 outfielders that I do not think will be moved, but I do think this team should move on from one of them, and that is the Boston Red Sox with Wilyer Abreu and Jarren Duran. The Red Sox have known for about a year now that they were going to need to trade an outfielder, and this became evidently clear even after Tyler O'Neill left in the offseason, when Alex Cora at the beginning of spring training declared Cedon Rafaela as the starting center fielder every single day. Now, Wilyer had a great rookie year. He started off slow, but then he got hot, and then he kind of just gave out towards the end of the year because he hadn't played a full season yet. And he ended up winning the Gold Glove, being one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. And this year we have seen more of a power surge from Wilyer. He's already had a career high 20 homers. And that good range and that good arm, not the accuracy, but the arm is still there. I think personally, if I was Greg Breslow, I would have traded Jarren Duran. Now, saying that after he had an 8-win season last year and was an MVP candidate is wild, but he's only a 2.8 win player this year, and with a 259 batting average, 326 on base percentage, 440 slug, and a 716 OPS with a 111 OPS plus. Now, Duran is having a down year compared to last year, but nobody expected him to be a 8-win MVP candidate player again. But personally, I was expecting more from Jarren earlier in the season and flat out defensively. He's become almost unplayable in left field. He's better in center field, but Rafael is a platinum glove defender and arguably the best defensive center fielder in the sport and should be there every day. But with the Marcelo Meyer injury, is now playing second base. The Red Sox with Roman Anthony, just let alone Roman Anthony, have known that they were going to need to trade an outfielder for almost a year now. And instead in the offseason, Craig Breslow spent the entire offseason trying to move Yoshida and Tristan Casas instead of one of his outfielders, something that he knew he was going to need to do. I do not think the Red Sox will move on from any of them. And even with the Padres, like as infatuated with the Duran as they are, I do not think the Red Sox will move him now. Maybe they'll move him in the offseason? I don't know, but you have to find a way to set up consistently getting your best lineup out there every single day with having Roman Anthony in left and Cedon Rafaela in center field. Personally, maybe you move Duran to the DH, have him platoon with Yoshida because it's been rough for Yoshida since coming back. But it's just going to be very interesting to see how the Red Sox handle this with not moving one of them at the deadline when they've known they've needed to for a while now. Rounding it off with some pitchers that I do not think will get moved, starting with the Tampa Bay Rays' Taj Bradley. I think Bradley would have very good value for Tampa Bay if they wanted to move him. I just don't see why they would. I think he's still a good young pitcher and still has a lot to unlock. And demoting him to AAA sure does not help that trade value. The Marlins' Edward Cabrera has finally put it all together this season, having a really good year in South Florida for the Marlins. I think the Marlins would kind of be foolish to trade him. I would just wait it out and see if they could build something because the Marlins are playing fairly good ball as of recently. Kyle Stowers' breakout's been awesome to watch. Yuri Perez's breakout's been awesome to watch. Build around it and have a good 1-2 year rotation. Even though the Cubs, Astros, and Red Sox have all expressed major interest in trading, I just don't see it yet. Maybe the Marlins do it either in the offseason or next year's deadline. I just don't see Edward Cabrera getting moved on now. And I think the Orioles trading Felix Bautista will not happen. Their closer, Bautista, is one of the better closers in baseball. He's recovered from Tommy John, having a good solid year this year. I just don't see it happening now. I think the Orioles should hold on to their young, controllable pieces and look to hopefully bounce back next year. It's been very unprecedented to see the Orioles struggle this much with all the young talent that they have. And I think they should look on selling rentals like Charlie Morton, Ryan O'Hearn, and not their young, controllable guys and good players like Felix Bautista. I just don't see these moves happening. And I think it would be best for those teams to keep those players instead of moving on from them. That wraps it up for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.